Arizona Hot Springs, about an hour from Las Vegas, is probably one of my all-time favorite hot springs. The hike to the hot springs is a little over 3 miles each way. It doesn't start out in a very remote location. Starting out under a freeway overpass just doesn't seem right when you're headed to one of the most scenic and beautiful locations I know of. On today's hike, I took a couple of friends. This was their first time to visit the hot springs. The hike starts out in a large, flat wash, and there really isn't a solid trail for the first little bit. Eventually, the wash funnels down into some low, rocky canyons. This is where the hike really starts getting interesting. It begins to take on the characteristics of this winding slot canyon that it'll soon become. Hopping from rock to rock is a lot of fun. For a while, it's a mixture of open desert and rocky canyons. But pretty soon it turns into a full-on slot canyon. While not very narrow or technical, there are plenty of obstacles you have to climb past. The canyon's named for these huge white boulders, but I don't have a clue where they came from. There's definitely no such thing as a straight line in this part of the country. After an hour or so, the canyon begins to open up. And pretty soon you're on the banks of the Colorado River. Below the Hoover Dam, the river is clear and a brilliant green.
It's like 54 year-round.
The river levels can fluctuate as much as 15 or 20 feet, depending on electrical demand. From here on, the trail gets a little hard to follow. There's a few signs, but they've steered me wrong before. I've done this hike nearly a dozen times, so there were no detours on this trip. A lot of people miss where the trail goes through the crevice. Shortly after that, the trail drops down into the slot canyon that has the hot springs. Although well marked, there is a little scrambling. If there's been rain recently, you'll see the stream almost immediately, and invariably, you'll come across groups of other hikers at this point as well. There's the obligatory sign letting you know that if you stick your head underwater, the amoebas will eat your brain out. From here on out, it's just a scramble up the slick stream until you reach the final obstacle before the hot springs. A 20-foot waterfall would make this route almost impossible, but the Park Service put in this ladder. This is an upgraded ladder. The old ladder is laying off to the side. It was a little bit more of a challenge. The hot springs is particularly busy today, but one of the things I love about this hot springs is how many different pools there are. The pools are never the same. Flash floods will remove the sandbags, and then they get put back in slightly different locations. The temperature of the pools range from about 60 degrees to about 112, I've been told. The narrow slot canyon makes it easy to form large pools with just a few sandbags, although I'm glad I'm not the one that had to fill all these. Like all hot springs, you never quite know what you're going to get until you arrive. I've met some of the most interesting people in my whole life at hot springs. This final pool's the hottest. Usually I can only sit in it for 10 or 15 minutes before I have to get out and go to the previous pool. I usually store my pack at the top of the hot springs in preparation for finishing the hike out through the hot springs canyon. No sense going back the way you came. Like always, the hot springs were truly amazing. I pretty much lost track of time. I can pretty well sit and soak for hours without even noticing. The hottest water flows down into this upper pool. My tender feet don't do too well on the gravel, but it's worth the sacrifice. This is one of the many areas that the water flows out of the rock. Here, it's toasty, super toasty. Although it looks like a campfire ring, this is actually a little pool that somebody made with super hot water. About 15 seconds was all I could stand in here. I felt like a lobster. Eventually it was time to head back. Here I'm rocking a crop top. I hear it'll help me get views. It just kept my shirt from touching my shorts till they dried out. This canyon isn't as dramatic as the one we came down, and it's a little bit shorter of a hike. There are a few obstacles you have to climb around though. Once you leave the canyon, the hike gets a little strenuous, and we reach the top just about dark. We had another mile or so to go. By the time we got back to the cars, about all you could see was taillights from the freeway. But it had been a fantastic day. I can't wait to go here again.